Broadcasting Radio Network. Hard Copy, as you know, seeks to lay out the facts in simple fashion for the inclusion of all Bahamians and Bahamians at heart. The focus every day to move forthright in our manner to build a progressive and developing country. Our desire is for a Bahamas with a competent, skillful, and productive workforce. We want a country that can feed and sustain itself. We want a country with a brilliant visionary action plan that's ready to embrace a future of hope and prosperity. We encourage like-minded Bahamians to participate with intelligent and honest contributions. After all, friends, we have a country to build. We've got jobs and industry to create, a people to inspire and empower, and generations of born and unborn Bahamians we the people must protect and plan for. And if not you, then who? If not now, then when? Today on the show, blindsided, broadsided, or bombshell. This is Hard Copy.
Commonwealth Bank auto loans are as hassle-free and easy as it gets. It's just that simple.
With on-the-spot dealer reps to approve and help you through the process, you're right, it really is just that simple.
With the many options available, like insurance financing, low down payments, and easy monthly payments, Commonwealth Bank had all the flexibility I needed in an auto loan.
Thanks, CB. Thanks, CB, for making it quick and easy.
Commonwealth Bank, leader in personal banking services.
New Oriental Cleaners insist that you look your best for back to school. Get a jump start. Bring in 5 pieces of uniform clothing and get $5 off. Only at New Oriental Cleaners. It's a bring 5, get 5 promotion for back to school. You bring in 5 pieces of uniform clothing and you get $5 off. What a deal. Go back to school looking your best with New Oriental Cleaners. Keeping you looking good is our pride and joy. Like us on Facebook and be the first to know about our big savings and promotions.
Are you frustrated with the educational system? Tired of large classes and social promotion? Tired of paying exorbitant fees for dismal results? Then Grace Academy is the solution for you. Individual learning plans to guarantee student academic success. Low student-teacher ratio. Reasonable and affordable tuition. All in a safe and comfortable Christian learning environment. Grace Academy, home of the Bob Jones curriculum, grades K3 through 6. Ask about our homeschooling center for secondary students. To register or for more information, contact 361-5100 or godslittle17@gmail.com. Number 1, Chester's Close, Vincent Road, off St. Vincent Road.
When Steve talks, people listen. People listen. People listen.
It is Wednesday, the first day in the month of July. We're in that 7th month. It's 2015. As you battle the congested city streets and drive home traffic, we have a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon. 90 degrees on the outside here in the nation's capital. There's an overnight low of 78 degrees and a 10% chance of rain in the forecast later this evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the drive home. I'm Steve McKinney. This is Hard Copy. We're brought to you today by Commonwealth Bail Bonds Limited, the Bank of the Bahamas, the Bank of Solutions, BTC Everyday, New Samsung 6, Super Value, the Bahamian Supermarkets, the McKinney Media Group for effective PR concepts and advertisement, Alan May Products, Ministry of Tourism, Goombay Summer Festival coming up, AML Foods, Solomon's Fresh Market, and Cartwright teaming up to give you big savings this summer. Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue. New Oriental Cleaners, 9 locations around the country. Grace Academy, number 1, Chester Close. Ron's Electric Motors, they can fix anything. Prime Immigration Services, Sky Bahamas professionals in every way, every day. Super Wash with 11 locations, open 24/7. CFAL, Canadian Financial Advisors Limited. Executive Printers for laser check prints. And Henry F. Store, the light people on Mackey Street. Blindsided, broadsided, or bombshell. Those words affiliated with this whole happening with the Baha Project. Friends, today you can join the conversation, 325-023506. You can also call me at 325-024243. There is also another number you can call me at 325-025253. You can BlackBerry me this afternoon at 376-9234. Follow us on the World Wide Web at peace1075.com, the cable top box 970, and TuneIn Radio, iPad, iPhone, any Android. You'll get us anywhere you are in this entire world. Also, follow us on Facebook, Hard Copy 242, and, of course, Twitter, Hard Copy Bahamas. I'm telling you that some things were uttered overnight that got the natives talking, and they are talking even now. Statements made. Let's take a look at some things today as we begin our conversation on broadsided, blindsided, or bombshelled. You can take your pick as to what really happened. Not that it matters anymore, because what is done is done. In the words of the Right Honorable Prime Minister Perry Gladstone Christie, it is what it is. He likes to say that, but he didn't say that on this particular matter. Let me be clear. I want to tell you that many are waking up to the reality of the Bahama Chapter 11 filing in Delaware, June 29th, 2 days ago. Many are waking up. Contrary to what some would wish to admit, it is a big deal. And it has the government reeling. Truthfully, Mr. Christie and his team need to be moving post-haste to see what they can do job-wise for the jobless, and otherwise for Bahamians recently put out of work by the Bahama Project and those who had been out of work for a very long time. In other words, full concentration of creativity and innovation must now be had for job creation. For some government members, you could imagine, the spin may be in, but the reality is that it is not up to government to make anything happen to reverse what has already happened. It is what it is. The government has no control in the matter. The matter is now tied up in the courts. Mr. Ismailian has already filed, apparently unbeknown to Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Perry Gladstone Christie, the key man who was mediator between the disagreeing parties. Blindsided was the word used to describe the matter by Christie and others. But the way we see it, the Prime Minister's initial reaction was to downplay this shocker on June 29th. But by the next day, he had awoken to the reality of what really broadsided his government. I'll explain. The first statement made on the 29th. This is important, friends, because you need to understand the context and the mentality of a government now reeling because of this. The very first statement that came from Christie, the matter happened just 3:30, let's say, on the 29th. Christie made a statement, 7:33, 4 hours some later. His first statement was a statement on paper, 3 paragraphs. I referred to this yesterday. Let me read it for you today so you can understand in context what is happening. It started out by saying, statement from Prime Minister, Office of Prime Minister, Coat of Arms. It says, this is the first statement. This is on the 29th, 7:30 in the night. I note this statement, he says, that has been given today by Mr. Sarkis Ismailian, that he and the Bahama group remained committed to the pursuit of an early and definitive settlement of their outstanding differences with the lender and general contractor to the Bahama Resort. The government, he says, continues to be available to all parties to assist in the mediation and resolution of their differences. In doing so, however, the government will not be taking anyone's side. Instead, the government will at all times continue to optimize its value as a mediator between the parties so as to ensure that the interests of Bahamian workers and indeed in the interest of the nation as a whole are accorded primacy at all times. The government, he says, listen up now, has taken note of certain legal initiatives that have been taken by Bahama in the courts of the United States to secure creditor protection. The Attorney General, he said, is presently reviewing these initiatives and their implications in conjunction with the government's U.S. and U.K. attorneys. Until this review has been completed, it would obviously not be appropriate to make any further comments on this aspect of the matter. The government, he said, remained hopeful that the continued exertion of good faith efforts by all concerned, the Bahama Resort will not only open soon, but will fulfill its promises, or its promise as an important new dimension in Bahamian and regional tourism, and one that will represent a major contributor to Bahamian employment. Now, interesting here, he had said that there was nothing, let me read it, obviously, he says, until this review has been completed, it would obviously not be appropriate to make any further comments on this aspect of the matter. And that is why there was comment made in media that this statement made on the 29th in response to this big blow that happened, this bombshell sarcasm throughout us, that this statement by the Prime Minister was inadequate, insufficient, unacceptable really by many who say, well, that's all he said. But this was made, in my view, as an attempt to downplay this sudden, catastrophic news by the Office of Prime Minister. But of course, on the show yesterday, we said that, is that all there is, Prime Minister? You mean that's the statement? That's unacceptable. It's inadequate. I think one editorial I also read called it an inadequate statement. Didn't amount to a hill of beans, considering the impact of this major company that we are depending upon. Well, the Prime Minister must have heard, because last night we had our show at 5 to 7 as usual. We made our commentary in that. And last night the Prime Minister called another press conference, of which we were not invited to. I don't know if it was oversight, but I'm told by the Bahamas Information Services, who normally puts out these kinds of bulletins, that it ain't their fault. Because I made a call first thing this morning to inquire as to how come the Prime Minister can be making a statement for the media in a press conference and MBM News was not invited. I must tell you, other news agencies were not invited either. Only apparently ZNS, Cable 12, and I saw 2 recorders on the desk. I don't know which papers they were from. But this is not how it's done. So just to segue for a second to say something along these lines, because I would be remiss if I do not say something. Nikki Simmons is the person in charge of that. Why she did not inform the entire media is beyond me. I can only interpret that as meaning that they wanted a closed-door environment with limited questions after the Prime Minister spoke. And so it's unfair, Mrs. Simmons, to have done that. It's either that you accept that it's unfair and irresponsible, or you would accept that we will judge you as someone who don't know what you are doing. That was egregious to members of the media. I leave it there for now. And so the Prime Minister did have his press conference, and I suppose only certain members were handpicked to be there. But of course, we are media, and media, unlike government, may be unanimous, full of unity. We know about unanimity. We know about it. And so we have the soundbite, nonetheless. Because you have to appreciate that people listen to different media houses on different matters, and certainly hard copy must have the soundbite. It's important for the record of the annals of history for this country. So the Prime Minister sat down there with his full cabinet, apparently. Some looked distracted from the photographs if you looked at it in the newspapers. Some looked not so interested. Some looked depressed. If I'm wrong, you can tell me. The newspapers are right there. And some looked kind of pensive. The Prime Minister, though, was in his full regalia and making his statement. Here's what the Prime Minister said. This is after now waking up to the reality. This is day 2. This is the 30th of June. This is the day after the 29th. The initial shock. The reality sets in on June the 30th, and the Prime Minister speaks after being told that it was inadequate. His little press statement that was made without any words, just a paper that was handed. He called the press conference and he spoke, which is good. And when he spoke last night around 8:33, this is what he said.
Yesterday, without notice, Baha-Mar filed a bankruptcy Chapter 11 petition in Delaware, United States of America. This action was taken at a point when my personal intervention over several months with all 3 parties involved led to substantial agreement on a package solution for additional funding by China Export-Import Bank, the resumption of construction work by the general contractor, and the project completion. This is supported by exchange of correspondence as recently as June 26. The government wants to reiterate that the #1 priority of all stakeholders involved with the Baha-Mar project should be its swift completion and opening. It is of great importance to the nation and to all Bahamians that Baha-Mar opens successfully. We must all work towards this goal as a matter of national priority. This is not the time to play politics, but rather we must unite to ensure the best interest of the Bahamas and all Bahamians is met. In the interest of promoting transparency and national unity on an issue that clearly transcends partisan politics, I invite the Leader of the Opposition to attend a briefing at my office on this matter. The government remains committed to being open and transparent with the Bahamian people, as it has since the beginning of this project. Any claim that the government or I have been misleading the public as it relates to the status of Baha-Mar is completely false. The government has been working with all parties and negotiating in good faith and with an end goal of a successful opening of Baha-Mar. The decision by Baha-Mar to file for Chapter 11 under the U.S. Bankruptcy Code does not change our end goal. negotiations must continue to progress immediately to ensure the successful opening as soon as possible. As previously stated, the government will not take sides, but rather continue to support all stakeholders in coming to a resolution. As the government of the Bahamas, we take the side of the Bahamian people, and we are acting to ensure the needs and interests of the people are first and foremost. This project will provide great economic opportunities for our country. Collectively, our sole focus should be on Bahama opening so that the jobs of current and potential employees are protected. This goal should not be and will not be distorted by politics.
That's the Prime Minister in his press conference last night. You heard him clear. You heard him speak clear. And, of course, we wonder your thoughts today because, really, this is the statement now, after waking up to the reality, that this project is where it is. And notwithstanding the Prime Minister's press conference last night, a press statement that he read for the media, the truth is, it is not up to the government to make anything happen to reverse what has happened yesterday. This is just follow-up to make the statement from his lips to our ears. This does not change anything because it cannot change anything. This is what you, the Bahamian public, whom I work for, must know. We love the PM and we appreciate all the efforts that he's making. And we do hope that we have success at the end of the day. But I would be remiss if I tell you that because he make a statement, all is well. No, the government has no control in the matter. Mr. Ismailian has already filed for bankruptcy, and it will play itself out. Do you want to know the reality of the matter? He has 120 days to show reason why he should not be bothered by creditors to collect monies. And then after he does that in this bankruptcy filing, he must then have 180 days to show how he's going to restructure and have this project back on stream. And in the meantime, he must be able to negotiate, if he is going to, with the people who he had an impasse with, the Import-Export Bank of China and the Chinese construction company. So this is a tall order. But Mr. Ismailian's first priority was to file bankruptcy to protect the assets. Simultaneously, he has sent the people home with an assurance that they will, or that he has payment for them for at least 3 weeks. He says, and I go to his statement, very important statement that he made. He talks about the fact that they will go home, and he says this: I am committed to doing what I can for all of you. Bahama will continue for a period to operate and fund payroll, and we are also using the next few weeks to try and reach a consensual agreement with our bank lender. The Bahama project is dependent on our lender working with us immediately to achieve such an agreement. He says if an agreement cannot be reached, we will have to make some extremely difficult decisions that would include workforce reduction. And he says at this time, we can't speculate about what that may mean. That's the assurance that the 2,000 plus Bahamians have gotten. A couple of weeks' pay, and the uncertainty that depends upon the coming together to negotiate successfully with the lenders. Don't forget, we had been in an impasse from January to the time that Sarkis filed for the bankruptcy. How hopeful is that to you? Well, Christie is hoping, we are all hoping, but is this vain hope? We have to wake up to reality. And that's why the word blindsided was used, because if it is true, as a text sender sent to me already today, this is what he says. Steve, if what the Prime Minister is saying is true, then it shows lack of respect for our government, and it also shows that there is a problem with that investor and our government, and certainly with the lenders and the contractors. Now, that's a tall order to satisfy, but I don't want to be the one to rain upon your parade if you're believing that we are fine and that the government statements last night makes it any better. It makes it better for Christie because he was already being dogged by media that you didn't even speak about the matter. Can you say something on the record? Because the first press release on the 29th was inadequate. So the second press release on the 30th was a little better. Not that he could wave his magic wand and make it go away. It's now on the record. And so, my friends, I tell you today, as we sit here, we have a lot of things to concentrate on, and you must now separate yourself from fantasy and deal with reality. Here's the tale of tapes, if you will. These are notes of interest, just for you. Baha is 6 months behind its December 2014 scheduled opening. You remember? Big signs. The world has a new destination, December 2014. It also missed announced openings in January, and the finance and of course later on in March and May of this year. The trouble started in January after CEO Sarkis Ismailian complained that the Chinese construction company did shoddy work on the $3.5 billion project, and that the work was unacceptable. It was below standard of international quality, and Sarkis didn't like it. He made some noise. This sparked a standoff between the construction company, China Construction, and the financier, China Import-Export Bank, and Mr. Ismailian. Our Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Perry Gladstone Christie, depending on jobs. His interest is jobs for the Bahamian people and a big booming economy if Baha can get moving for this country. It's a defining thing that he wants to do, to define legacy and everything else, and it is a good project to go and try to make it happen. Nobody says it's not. It would be a wonderful thing for Christie to look back and say, boy, that Baha beat his chest. That's my thing. I got it done. So the Prime Minister Christie, depending on jobs for Bahamians, got involved as a mediator and had been bogged down with resort developers and financier, China Export-Import Bank. Then something else happened. No can do. They can't get things moving. Meantime, Ismailian is flying back and forth and what we understand was his private jet that raised eyebrows in China. And as he flew back and forth, nothing much happened. But Christie was excited about this, and he said in the House of Assembly as they had the budget debate going on that this is June 17th. He told the House of Assembly that he had received encouraging news, good news, about a possible impending resolution to end the Baha impasse. Later on, when the media asked him the question, he threw his hands up and said, look, I can't give you an opening date, but I've been working assiduously to try to get this thing done, but I can give you a date. You'll have to ask the developers. It was almost as if he was like, you know, boy, this thing ain't going, and he threw his hands up. That's how one would have interpreted it, but he did try. We know that. But when he said that, the next thing we knew is that Ismailian came home. There was no good news. The Prime Minister must have been shocked the whole time because somehow or another he didn't get to make his speech for the budget. I told colleagues that if there was good news, this would be a good time to announce it at the end of the budget. as a means of saying, see, despite the naysayers, we are on the move. But there was no speech from Prime Minister Christie. There was no budget contribution. There was none from Dr. Nottage. There was none from Brave Davis. We all know that. And so we knew that this project was in trouble. The next thing we know is that out of nowhere, the press release comes down that Sarkis has filed for Chapter 11. That was a shocker. And as I said at the beginning of the show, the initial impact of the shocker was so great that the first statement that Christie made was of a non-event statement. It said nothing. So the second time around, he made the statement that you heard today, for what it's worth, for your understanding. Now, as we talk here, friends, today, we've got to get to some very important business, because you need to know a lot of things of what's happening here. One of those things happens to be that the people who had looked at and analyzed the situation of this project, and I have to share this with you because you see, there are some who are still moving around believing that it's okay, and we all want it to be, but there are some reality matters that we have got to look at. This is a major setback. This project was the end-all be-all for the Bahamas, if I can say that. This was the real McCoy. This was the one that's supposed to take us to a different level in regional tourism, in the words of Christie. Regional tourism in this country. We would have gone to another level. What does all this mean? If you look at it and analyze it, if you're looking at 120 days here to show reason, cause why there should be no collection from creditors, if you look at the fact that it's been filed in the U.S. jurisdiction, if you look at the fact that there's been no filing to date, we checked it, from any of the creditors in the Bahamas to gain their monies or to lay claim for it, there's been none. None has been filed in this jurisdiction. There's something ominous about that, because we know the creditors here include BEC and many others, and some companies that had been, in the words of one local businessman, hogging up all the investment and floor space at Baha Ma. One particular company got 21 stores or sports or floor space for this project. Not to include or not to forget the support services and other people who are catering to Baha Ma and doing business with them. What's going to happen with that thing? It is big, friends, because it has a domino multiplying effect on everything that we are doing. That's why the government was telling us from the jump, this project cannot afford to fail. A lot of things are riding on it. Other people's jobs, even your job may be riding on it, because you don't know the investments that are there and how that affects the bottom line if the company that you work for has any business with Baha Ma. This is serious. That's why I said at the opening today, it is just my humble suggestion that the government get on the fast track and try to move post-haste to find jobs and create something. Because based upon the numbers and based upon the procedure of this particular event, of this Chapter 11 filing, you're looking at early 2017. You see, after this first 120 days, 4 months thereabouts, there's 180 days to now see. The second phase of this is to show for Baha Ma, for the Baha Ma developers to show how they're going to reorganize this financing thing and hold on to this project if they are able to hold on to it. That's going to take another 180 days plus the 120 days. Do the math. That spells trouble for Christie and his government, who had been saying that with the kind of zeal to bring about the enthusiasm among many people, oh, by October we'll be in the convention hall down there in the convention center at Baha Ma. That is what they were saying. That is where the convention is planned. But I'm sure that, all things considered, they may be now looking for another venue, just in case, since they're optimistic and they believe that this will come out in time, just in case. It may be prudent to find another convention spot. That's the reality. That's not meant to make them look bad. I give you facts and reality. They can call and dispute it. So when we look at the whole crunching of the numbers and how this whole thing may litigate, you're looking at 2017. If it's cleared up in the first 4 months, you're still looking at 4 months delay. This is now July, August, September, October, November. The world has a new destination in 2014, December. If you were to add to that, you'll say maybe they'll have a new destination for the world by 2015, December. If all things go well in the first analysis, in the first instance. But that's the procedure. I'm no lawyer, but I'm smart enough to talk with some who understand how these things work out. And as a result of that, the key thing, Harrison Mutri, one of my analysts on this show, talks about 120 days to propose plans to courts and creditors. Remember this.
It seems as if under the bankruptcy provision, Chapter 11, that Ismarillion is no longer in charge.
He is not.
Ismarillion is a trustee.
He is not.
Or debtor in possession.
He's not.
According to the law, he has 120 days to propose an acceptable plan to the courts.
Which shall also be accepted
by the creditors.
By the creditors.
Has to be accepted by the creditors. So, and then after that 120 days,
3 months,
that he has, the courts then gives him an exclusivity period to implement that plan of 180 days.
To implement it at that time.
Right, of 180 days. So
6 months.
There's a possibility that we're looking at 6 to 9 months in terms of the Bahamian people being in limbo or in abeyance and not knowing what the future holds.
That's correct. But listen to this. Here's an excerpt from Bahamas Sarkis Ismarillion, the chairman and chief executive officer. He says, I am committed to doing what I can for all of you. Bahama will continue for a period to operate and fund payroll, We are also using the next few weeks to try and reach a consensual agreement with our bank lender, with the Chinese Import-Export Bank. The Bahama project is depending on our lender. The Bahama project is depending on our lender, China's Import-Export Bank, working with us immediately to achieve such an agreement. Halson says what? 6 to 9 months. But there's payroll for about 3 weeks. I didn't write this, friends. I'm showing you something. Reality time. Further, if an agreement cannot be reached, says Ismarillion, we will have to make some extremely difficult decisions. That would include workforce reduction. Now, if you feel good about that, that's fine. All I'm saying is that that's the reality. All I'm saying is that Mr. Christie can't do anything about it except, just like you and me, wait it out. Now, Christie had been talking about not knowing and being blindsided by what happened. He opened his press conference for the media that were invited, hand-picked, and selected, I must add, thanks to one Nikki Simmons. He says, yesterday without notice. That's how the Prime Minister opened up his remarks. Blindsided, broadsided, or bombshelled. That's what that means. So, if they didn't know, then how can we, who are not lawyers like Mr. Christie, how can we then speculate from our space of ignorance, since we're not lawyers, that he did know? Now, I believe that any lawyer worth his salt, any lawyer who has the position of being in the chair as mediator, notwithstanding he's the Minister of Finance and the Chief Minister among equals, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, I would like to believe that Mr. Christie is one of the most clever, most brilliant lawyers we've ever had. To not anticipate that these guys may have, this is in defense of him being blindsided, or this is to put the picture forward that he could not have been blindsided. Not a smart lawyer like Christie. How can Mr. Christie be blindsided as one of the greatest lawyers from Christie, Ingram, Davis & Co.? You mean to tell me that it did not occur to him that this could happen? That Sarkis could do this quick move? Well, I would like to believe that the PM would have been able to pick that up and anticipate that as one of the things that can possibly happen in this game of chess, since they were at an impasse. But then again, I'm no lawyer, so what do I know? But I'm thinking, if I was a lawyer, with the ability of Christie, the capability and the know-how of Mr. Christie, I would have picked that up. I would have anticipated that. I could not have possibly been blindsided, broadsided, or bombshelled. But that's just me. What say you? 325-0235 or 6, 325-0242 or 43, 325-0252 or 53. I'm open for your comments. My text is 376-9234. And, of course, you can call me right now, because I'm also talking another part in this picture today about some other things. And so if you wish to comment on this whole matter with the Prime Minister on the Bahama bankruptcy and all of that, his first and second statement, what you believe had happened, how much you've bought into what the Prime Minister said, and the fact that if he was blindsided and no one told him what was happening, does it mean that he was asleep at the wheel? Does it mean that we don't have a good relationship with Ismarillion after all? Does it mean that we don't know where we are going to turn now, because there's no sense in crying over spilled milk? This is water under the bridge, this particular chapter. Ismarillion either blindsided, broadsided, bombshelled our government and didn't tell Christie nothing. Christie opens and says, yesterday without notice. In other words, no one told us anything. They just did what they did. Not that Mr. Ismarillion's in the wrong for doing it, but that Christie wants to clear up in anybody's head that any claim that the government or I, Mr. Christie, have been misleading the public as it relates to the status of Bahama is completely false. He went to great pains to express that last night. There's nothing we can do about it except comment and say, Mr. Christie, we believe you. Mr. Christie, we don't believe you. Mr. Christie, you got to do better. Mr. Christie, you've got to be more focused on these things, because a qualified lawyer like you ought to have been able to anticipate that Ismarillion could have slipped out and do exactly what he did. What say you, public? 325-0235 or 6, 325-024-2043, 325-025-2053. Hard copy.
Yes, good evening, Steve. How you doing?
Very good, thanks.
Listen, man, whether he knew or not, the biggest thing here is that the Prime Minister of the country had no idea something that takes a long time and a complicated process to do in multiple jurisdictions happening right under his nose.
I didn't get you. He did what under his nose?
Yeah, I mean, it had to, because here it is. I'm sitting in my room watching the stuff in Parliament where the Prime Minister gets up no less than 3 weeks ago, okay, and says, I have good news.
Yes.
Okay? Now, you don't file bankruptcy for 10 different subsidiary companies, okay, and put together the paperwork to do that sort of stuff in two or 3 days. And the fact of the matter is, if you read Mr. Dunlop's, who is the CEO, the president of Bahamas, you read the statement of the day in the paper, he said that they knew that if they can get something done by May, they were gonna run out of money, and they were gonna do this in June. Yes. Okay? So there is no way that they could even, I mean, come on. If that's a part of the conversation and the Prime Minister doesn't understand it, that has nobody checking on this stuff, on something that quote unquote is too big to fail, then we have real problems from a level of competence.
And governance.
No, not confidence, competence.
Competence.
Okay? At the level of the office of the Prime Minister. Yeah. And that speaks volumes. And I'm going to go back to something that you've been playing for months. And you get ridiculed for it on social media sometimes. But that prophecy that Dr. Miles put forward, you have been saying, when you started playing it over almost 2 months now, people have been, nothing's coming to play. These last 30 days, we are seeing the events ramp up. And it's been ramping up more and more and more. And this is serious.
It is. It is a major thing that's happened here. But I don't know. It's perhaps going to take a little while to wear on people, and the reality of the wait period is going to then unravel people in such a way that it could be scary.
Yeah, but you know what's really scary? The fact of the matter is that in March, when they were still doing construction every day, they indicated in numerous different press filings that they were not going to be open until at least August. Because if you remember the story about the guy whose wedding got canceled, his wedding was supposed to be in May. And they said to him they could rebook him anytime after August. Yeah. Okay? And that's when they were constructing every single day. They have now been stopped constructing for months and weeks now. Okay? And even if they started tomorrow, that hotel is not going to be open till Christmas.
No. I agree.
Right?
I agree.
Okay? And now with bankruptcy, they have to stop everything at least for 3 weeks. So we're really talking at the very least, and this goes straight to the court process, the earliest they can resolve this is going to be now August, which means you're going to push this filing back, push this construction back, push the progress back until early spring next year. What are you going to do with those 2,000 people who are employed, or the 5,000 that you're hoping to employ? What is this going to do to the reputation of people who have booked? I have colleagues of mine in the U.S. who had already booked to come down. All right? This is not a Bahama issue. It's not a Bahamas issue.
It is a Bahamas issue. Absolutely.
And so if Bahamas better wake up, they better wake up. You know, I've been telling some friends of mine that there's a reason why old sailors never take rats off the boat. Okay? Because rats have a sense. If they see a hole in that boat that they figure you could fix, they'll swim in the water that's coming and leaking in the bottom of the boat. But the minute they figure out that hole is too big and you can't fix it,
they come on deck.
God has given them an innate ability. You see them jump in ship, and that's why sailors don't keep cats on boats. Because when they see the rats getting off the boat, they know it's time to get on the lifeboat.
I appreciate it.
The country, the rats are jumping off. The rats are jumping off.
I appreciate your call. Thank you very kindly.
God bless you.
Thank you, sir. 325-023-546. Now, there are many members of the Bahama team, what they call the Blue Nation. That's the name that they've adopted, who feel pretty confident that all will be well. I would like to hear from you, and I'd like to hear you tell me why and how, because it's that important. You see, we say they're doing this for you. To us, we are propagating the news, disseminating the news in talk radio formats. So we're dealing with facts and figures and truth and honesty, not conjecture and a wisher and a iffer. No. We give you what is being said. And that's why all and sundry are invited to call me and to weigh in and say, because, you know, really, I personally feel bad about this matter. I do. I hate to be in that choir that says, see, we told you also. You were not paying attention. We had been tracking this particular development from its inception. The very first time that this was announced, and Sandy Sands and his PR team and them decided that they were going to involve wider participation through media, they were selective. Hear me very clearly. Selective in who they sent even press releases to. They were selective in who they invited to view the property. And when they did that, they didn't even let them in to see the property. They only let in the Prime Minister. I was suspicious from then. And I told you so. Because unlike Atlantis, who had nothing to hide, these guys, this was like stealth. What you saw, you could only see from the road if you could have. You have to be proud. You remember I said on the show one time, I don't feel that they, and I think I was saying this when Mr. Mark Antonis was here, who used to be at Atlantis and then resigned and went to Dubai or someplace wherever he went. He and Ed Fields were on the show, and I said, and I had them on the show talking about the threat, if there was one with Bahama and so forth, and they didn't even pay that any mind. Their thing was that, no, we're doing what we're doing, and if they can do what they're doing, all be well. But at the same time, I was saying, you know, I don't feel the electricity, the connectivity. I don't feel them, and many people don't feel them. Shortly afterward, they went on a campaign trail, Bahama, and they had this Blue Nation thing on Fort Charlotte to get the people involved because we weren't feeling them. And people generally cannot support things that they don't feel. If the people aren't feeling the government now, the government should be worried. They can put out their own testers. They don't. You can do that. Go then figure and feel. Don't mind me. I don't know what I'm talking about. Go and feel out in the public how they are responding to your governance. And if you get the right idea, you will do some things to buckle up in double time. Otherwise, you will pay for your incompetence. That's how it works. You got to go and feel what people are saying. And I can tell you, categorically from the GNN, the Ghetto News Network, they're not feeling you. They're not feeling Bahama. They're not feeling the government of the Bahamas. In fact, they're waiting on you. If I'm wrong, please call me and correct me. Public. They're waiting on you. I put it on the table today. Call me and tell me that you're not waiting on them. They know you know. They already know. It's a matter of time. And I don't mean that with any pun, because I know the Free National Movement used that before, and I don't want anybody to get me misunderstood. They don't have a monopoly on the English language. They're waiting on you. It is a matter of time. Because, as I told you yesterday, friends, this whole thing about the Bahama project coming to what it is so serious, it will impact us like you never know. You have no imagination how this will impact us. You wait till the stories start flying. And I'll tell you something else. As it impacts us and we get used to what is happening, it could affect our economy like you've never known. So ain't no time to be playing. No, Christie's right. Right Honorable Prime Minister Christie's right. This is no time for politics. This is time for reality. It's good to see Prime Ministers reached out to Mr. Minnis and said, I want him to come to my office to get a briefing. I don't know if Mr. Minnis is gone yet and when they have the meeting planned, but I think it's a good effort because you need to be unified on this matter. This is bigger than partisan politics. It is the nation that needs to have redress on this. But let me put that in context. As I said yesterday, the nation in the context of God is we have God supreme. God will lead us as to what to do with this. But this is an attention getter from the Almighty. When I said it last night, some people, oh, well, that's your business. It is. It's an attention getter. Put things in priority and take your eyes off man, because man hand will fade you. If you don't recognize that our God is a jealous God, that's your business. I recognize it. And many had been putting, especially the politicians, had been putting this monstrosity ahead of everything. This is the be-all, end-all Bahama. We need this like we need the air to breathe. And that went to the nostrils of the Almighty, and it went up with a stinking flavor. And that's why this project is where it is. Fraught with problems, and now stuck. Now, look to the hills from whence cometh your help. Hard copy, how are you?
Mr. McKinney.
Peace.
How you doing, John?
Very good.
Good afternoon to the Bahamas. I didn't get to hear the whole clipping of the Prime Minister. Did he say he's not misleading the Bahamian people?
Yeah, he says he is not. I can read it for you. He says, I've got the text here. He says, any claim that the government or I have been misleading the public as it relates to the status of Bahama is completely false.
Okay. But he said he had good news a few weeks ago.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Did he ever came out and tell us? And I am still waiting for him to come and tell me as a Bahamian what was that good news.
Well, apparently that good news wasn't so good after all. Because he said nothing. The opportunity that he had to talk about the good news presented itself on the floor of the House of Assembly with the entire nation watching after Rawlings had stand the House on its feet. The Prime Minister then was supposed to come behind that to make his rapid budget debate, and any good news to stoke anybody would have been embodied in that. So he could say, after all is said and done, after all that Rawlings and them run on with, this the deal. Boom, boom, boom. Nothing happened.
Okay, but he said he have a meeting. He also need the show Mr. Brown McCarthy a little respect and call him to that head of that table too. Because
Yes.
I believe personally
Yes, Mr. McCartney has a legitimate party. There's no question about it.
So
See, if you,
respect and call him there too.
yeah, and I like your point. I appreciate your call. See, if you are if you're talking about unanimity, non-partisanship, everyone together because it's our country, you don't have to like Brand, but you have to respect that he is also. Now, he's not the official opposition. The Prime Minister's job, he don't have to recognize a non-official opposition entity. See, the FNM is Her Majesty's Royal Loyal Opposition. So that's a given. He has to. That's by law. He must consult. But if you say that this is non-political and you want all and sundry on deck to assist where they can, maybe you ought to brief Brand as well. Okay. Hard copy, how are you? Hi there. Good afternoon. I'm listening. Good. Hard copy, how are you?
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. McKinney, as we speak, and you speak truth to this subject matter, as Bahamians, we always like to be very authoritative on subject matter. But right now, and this is only my belief, and this is how I feel, I thank God for the media, because certain things that we were kept in the dark about, has now been brought to light. And every area of, be it commerce, be it whatever, comes on out in talk radio. At times, you find that the advice that are given are on point, and then sometimes some person suggests shooting smoke screens. So right now, Mr. McKinney, and this is how I feel, all right? One of the things I feel, and this is me, I feel that, yes, Mr. Christie is telling the truth, you know. You know why? Mr. Christie is the president of CARICOM. So he was not always in the country.
Okay.
Mr. Christie, not so long, about a couple of weeks ago, came back from away. Now, probably his attaché did not give him his debriefing because he was probably catching up with CARICOM and other, not making no excuses, you know. That is why, and I feel as though Mr. Christie should have delegated Mr. Halkitis to the project, assigned him to the project, give him that portfolio because that is his area of expertise. And another thing you look at right now, all persons who have anything to do with finances, any what you call electrical engineer, construction engineer, and all of those, all he should be consulting every one of them as to what their take on it is, and as Bahamian collectively, we should be now rallying not on, and thinking of the 2,000 jobs that is going to be lost and how we could assist our brothers and sisters. Another thing, we should also be cognizant of the fact that, guess what, if those persons do not have stability, they have families, we don't know how much persons are in the families, and all of those persons are affected. So right now, they are going through a traumatic experience. So where is the counselors for those people? And I feel as though when you have something as major, this right now could be considered catastrophic for those who losing their jobs, so they don't become despondent, all right, and depressed, and also even thinking about committing suicide. So we right now need to rally around them, see where their heads are, so you could get some counseling in. So they would know that, guess what, persons care. Where is the church in all of this?
I appreciate what you're saying. You're not wrong. You're right on money.
Because everybody belongs to a church.
Yes.
And you find that until the pastors and those start focusing on not only saving souls, but care.
Yeah.
You know, when members hurt them, that's the time they need you, because you're part of a family.
I appreciate
and that's what the church should be, a family.
I appreciate it. I got to run. I've got many calls, but let me just say, you talk about the beginning of this thing, in your beginning of your statements, you talked about the idea that Christie is telling the truth and that he may not have known and so forth and so on. You may be right. I don't know. The point is this. What that does, that paints a picture of a prime minister who is not on top of the game for the biggest project that will happen in the history of the Bahamas. That's what that paints. That paints a picture of somebody who is not on top of it. And you talked about, why didn't he appoint Halkitis? Well, let me say this. The prime minister himself dealt with this particular matter as the chief commander of this country. And it deserves that kind of a level of involvement. So I have no difficulty with that. I could agree that maybe the PM should have appointed a task force to look at and to keep him abreast every day. Maybe he should have put the task force together from the time this project ran into problems and have a task force interfacing with Ismailian and these others, the EXIM Bank and so forth and so on, so that he could be briefed as the chief, and then when he has to move in there, he moves in there with all of his, splendor, if you will, and get some things done. Like he should be the guy, the last man to deal with this matter. But he was the first man to deal with this matter. And if anybody slipped up, the prime minister himself must take responsibility. So to say that he was, in his words, I want to quote him correctly, so let me just find this press statement again that he sent out. The Prime Minister said, here it is. The Prime Minister said, where is it? Did somebody come in and take my paper? Here it is right here. The Prime Minister said, yesterday, without notice, Bama filed a bankruptcy Chapter 11 petition in Delaware, USA. That's all he said. He didn't go to say and further enunciate in his speech on this that to the press that they didn't even tell me nothing and I did not even know. But you can capture it in this whole thing, yesterday without notice. So, if he was the chief mediator, you can see why people are saying, hey, Mr. Prime Minister, what are you saying? Hard Copy, how are you?
Yes, sir. I'm how you doing?
Hello, I'm fine, thanks, sir.
Hey, man, thanks, sir. Like you show, man. Keep on, you're doing a very good job.
I appreciate it.
But I say, let me ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
At the stage the hotel in now, is it possible they can open a half of it along the casino? Is some relief to the project?
My friend, I wish that could happen, but the truth is, once this bankruptcy's been filed, that's why you saw the people putting up the fences. It's going to take a bit. And the fences are meant to keep people out from vandalizing a property that's going to be standing there for a bit. And so, no, there's no part of it opening. It doesn't work like that. If they wanted to phase things in, they should have built it in phases and open pieces of the rent, but they didn't do that. They were waiting on one big thing.
What I'm afraid of in that building,
mm-hmm.
I'm afraid the building not a sound structure that's it ought to be, you know.
Well, that's what Esmeralda is making noise about. See, we were not the only ones on Hard Copy or The Last Word who said that the building looked like a piece of cardboard with some, like paper mache with some kind of cement on top of it. Ismarillion made noise to the builders saying that these guys didn't build this thing good. He don't like it. It's unacceptable. That's how this whole argument started, you know. Okay.
Right now, what makes me so afraid of that, I think I don't know how long that can uphold the rate of people that come full capacity.
Well, don't worry about that. We'll get to that when it's time. But I do take your point. Yeah.
Yes, keep up. You're doing a wonderful job. You're the second punch in the Bahamas.
Thank you. If that's a compliment, I thank you. If it's not a compliment, I thank you anyway. But no, this is a serious thing that's happening here, friends. Let nobody fool you. Now, you know I'm not going to get on this microphone and tell you stuff that is to fool you. I have no agenda. My agenda is to inform you. And I have the notes here to inform you. And I hope that we can get this thing going. But I know reality sets in that, look, it's not going to happen in the blink of an eye. And in the meantime, and in between time, your brothers and sisters, and maybe your mommy and daddy, maybe yourself who worked there, you've only been promised a couple of weeks' pay. Actually, 3 weeks' pay. I understand there are people who believe that, boy, you know, I get pay, I can get pay, so everything will work out. Hey, I love your enthusiasm. But there's a reality here. Christy knows the reality. The reality is that this is now before the U.S. courts. It's a process. So brace yourselves. Hard Copy, how are you?
Steve, how you doing?
Good.
You said something a few minutes ago I think a lot of people may have missed, you know.
What's that?
You remember when you're talking about God being a jealous God?
Yes, it's true.
Okay, and you indicated that the politicians were really praising this Bahama.
Yeah, they weren't looking to God. They had been talking contrary God. And I have not sound bites, but I have got a list of statements made by all of them with regards to God and not being up front. And the text, and it was reminding me that, boy, look here, this is a serious thing. This is egregious. This is not good before the eyes of God.
Do you know whom the major builders worship, who their God is?
I don't know. Who?
Buddha.
No.
Huh?
I hear you.
That's not the true and the living God.
Well, I don't want to get into that debate. All I'm saying is this: for our people who believe in the supremacy of God, we ought to operate like we do.
Let me say this, and then I'll hang up. Could it be that those persons dedicated that place to Buddha?
I don't know.
Okay.
I appreciate you, cool. Okay, thank you kindly. I tell you, friends, what we have here is a state of flux. But we must continue to pray. That's why I told you yesterday, leadership is a very serious thing. And by the way, I want to tell you something. Where we are today is not where we're supposed to be as a nation, as we are celebrating today, the first day of July, 9 days to go before a public holiday called Independence, that some people just say, well, let's go on the beach and have a picnic. But this is when we became a country, July 10th, 1973. And from where we were in July 10th, 1973, when the first proclamation from God came down to us as a nation through the person of the Reverend Dr. Ari Cooper, which I will let you hear later on, it set the tone for the kind of nation this was to be. And so where we are today, I can tell you, just looking back to the archives, my archives that deals with these kinds of matters and can bring them forward and share it with you, we're not where we are supposed to be right now. Not based upon what was proclaimed from the Word of God on July 10th, 1973, spoken by the words, spoken by the man, Reverend Dr. Ari Cooper. Stand by. You're going to hear that today. It's important. Hard copy, how are you?
Good evening, Mr. McKinney.
Peace, how you doing?
I'm pretty good to reconcile you.
Yes, my friend, I recognize your voice.
McKinney, I was listening yesterday, I'm listening today, and the carryover is that this situation didn't just happen accidentally. This happened in a step-by-step manner. Number one, Mrs. Rillian and the government been having some public, disagreements in the past months.
One on the roadworks.
The roadworks, that's exactly where I'm going. That been going on, and the government, in my mind, had, disrespected the investor. Okay? And they took a lot of flack. They exchanged words over and over, and we wouldn't go into all of that. But the fact of the matter is, leading up to this point right now, this unfortunate situation with the Chapter 11, my main concern is the thousands of Bahamians who have been affected, all right, who are hurting. And it always seems that it's the small man, the Bahamian, left holding the bag with the hole. And that is most unfortunate. Now, the Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Perry Christie, he said he was blindsided by what happened. That may or may not be so. But if it is so, it shows his, deficiency as a leader. Number one, if the investor could disrespect him in such a way that they go and do this thing and they don't give him a heads up of it, well, it shows that there is bad blood, there's disrespect, and that things are not the way they're supposed to be. And we hear the situation with the China construction company in America and the shorty workmanship. I mentioned that many months ago on the same show.
Yes.
That, there was a big complaint about that. All right? And you make one wonder, where was the people from the Ministry of Works who's supposed to be inspecting this place? Mr. McKinney, don't you think that there should be periodic inspections as they go on?
Of course. I mean, it's being built in the Bahamas. Maybe we got this view that since the Chinese were able to negotiate with the Bahamas government, that they would bring in their own workers and this and that and the next thing, that we had to have a hands-off approach. I don't know.
Well, see, that's where leadership there again is deficient. Where is the Minister of Works and his agents who were supposed to be doing this thing? Now we left in this very, very terrible, critical situation. Because of these people. Mr. McKinney, I like to see it go on. But see, right now, this is totally out of the hands of the Bahamas government. Mr. Christie, what he has to say or does not say doesn't make a hill of beans. What happens is what those people can agree to in the Chapter 11 decisions they make to pay off their creditors. All right, you have 1,000 local Bahamian creditors, okay? You have, they filed something in London, and they said one of the things was the substandard weight and the constant delays and all this thing going on. Mr. McKinney, this is terrible. But I believe in miracles. I do believe in miracles. And through it all, I believe some way, somehow, it got away good. Have a good day, Mr. Christie.
I appreciate Mr. Christie. Thank you very
Mr. McKinney, sorry.
You got Christie on your mind. We all have Christie on our minds. I'm praying for Christie to come out of this and to land on his feet because, I mean, this is a very intelligent and very educated society now, and we can read through the lines. I mean, you know, you have to sometimes give a guy a break. He says he was blindsided. Some people don't believe that he was blindsided. Some people believe that he was just duped because he was not up to par with these guys, and Ismailian came off as a slippery fellow who slipped out of his hand and went on to the United States, Delaware, to file his bankruptcy. And so sometimes you've got to say, boy, I feel bad for the fella, the PM, and we're going to pray for him to land on his feet because he's our prime minister. And he's a clever guy. Something happened, and we don't know what it is. Because I don't believe, in my heart of hearts, I don't believe, friends, I must tell you, I don't believe that Christie would allow something to happen deliberately. I don't believe that. I know how much this project means to him for his legacy and for him to beat his chest and say, you know, I did that. Because, you know, he wants to do that. I don't believe he would deliberately, I really don't, that he would deliberately see something that has happened and say nothing. I believe that he tried to do some things and it didn't work out, and then perhaps when he got discouraged and you know, and threw up his hands for a bit, that he may have become disengaged for a minute or two, and in that swift moment, Ismailian decided to take some action because Ismailian is desperate, looking for monies. You know, and one of the things that Ismailian could be totally ticked off about is this thing what Fred Mitchell has gotten a free pass on. Fred Mitchell also announced that there was some good news, that something good, some deal was on the table, just the day before Ismailian hit them with that blow. Boom! I mean, Mr. Mitchell had been saying something. As it turned out, as I said on the show, Mitchell was basically talking about the fact that the government acknowledged that they owed some monies for the road works, and they were going to put that, I think it may have been some $50 million in the hand of Ismailian, because they knew that he needed it to at least, you know, make some payroll and do some things. And they had been wrangling over it. And while Brave Davis was the one who negotiated and was holding back because he said, you know, we're not going to give away the people's money, Brave is also right. But at the same time, Brave gets a lot of bad press, and the Tribune beat him under the ground. See, you have to read the editorials. They beat him under the ground weeks ago when he decided that he was going to go away to speak on behalf of this Chinese construction company and the wonderful job they're doing here, when he knew full well that these guys were lousy. But he spoke good about them anyhow, because you see, the big picture is that the Chinese are trying to get their footprint into the world as a new, modernized building construction company. And so Brave Davis's importance as Deputy Prime Minister of the Bahamas meant a lot to them. And when he spoke twice on their behalf, they felt emboldened to tell Ismailian that you got to be talking fool. This thing ain't do good. What you mean? And we've gotten international endorsements from the Deputy Prime Minister of the Bahamas. You see how this thing works out? Anyway. Hard copy, how are you? Hi there. Okay. Hard copy, welcome. How you doing?
Hey, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Didn't we have some local preachers going on there and bless the place?
I don't know. I didn't hear that.
A year or two ago?
Well, I know that some preachers who I teased, they told me that they went down there to do a tour. And I said, boy, you guys are blessed to have been able to go and do a tour. This was right after they had the problem with the workers that they invited. They were very slick. They invited the Christian Council down there. And as the Christian Council walked about, I asked them when they came on my show, how was it? They said it was good. You know, there's a lot of good things happening up there. And then I said, so they just brought you on a walkabout? They say, no, they gave us some Kool-Aid.
They wine them and dine them.
They gave us some Kool-Aid and some sandwiches and some comforters. I said, and you went, and but that was just a joke.
But Steve.
But they only went to tour it. They didn't go to endorse it.
It is a tongue-in-cheek moment, right? Imagine if Ismailian had put this trick on Mr. Ingram.
Oh, no, that couldn't happen.
Boy,
that couldn't happen.
Like it couldn't. No. He would be of the repercussion.
Listen, you need to know who Mr. Hubert Alexander Ingram is. Let me tell you, a lot of people try to give him a bad break. Let me tell you something, son. Mr. Hubert Alexander, the Right Honorable Prime Minister, this fella is a fella that pays attention to detail. And he likes to micromanage. And that's to his credit on these kinds of things. And he loves to wear hard hats. Yeah, you know, someone must have told him when he was younger that, boy, you can't wear no hard hat. And as he became Prime Minister, he just, every time he got a chance to put on the hard hat, he put on the hard hat and he went and he inspected these properties. And I don't care what you say. I know Mr. Ingram, Mr. Ingram would not have been duped.
His displeasure of what Mr. Edwin did to him. But that was sort of not, I would say, I'm very displeased with him.
Well, you see, if I was at that press conference, let me tell you, my brother Robert, if Nikki Reed Simmons had invited MBM News or Hard Copy to the conference as she was supposed to, all members of the media, she didn't. She didn't invite us, and she didn't invite several others. But if they had invited me, and I went there last night after the show with my tape recorder, I was going to get the Prime Minister's statement, one, and two, I was going to ask the Prime Minister point blank the questions that the people want to know. But you see, that is not what that press conference is about. That press conference was about making a statement, and only that. And, you know, don't really bother to ask any questions. This is not that kind of a thing.
But do you remember when Mr. Ingram first came into power, he took some crown land back, you know?
Yes, he did.
And he said, hey, Christy, you can give away your own house.
Anyway, you want to make jokes. This is too serious. You know, I don't want to trivialize this, and I can appreciate a little light laughter. But this is big, friends. And you've got to also understand that the young people and the older people who work at the property at Bahama, they don't find this to be a laughing matter. There are some youngsters who are just happy and glee. You understand that. But they probably ain't got no rent to pay. They probably ain't got no mortgage to pay. They probably ain't got a chick nor child. But those who have mortgage to pay, chick and child and husband and this and that and married and have to pay mortgage, it's a different tune. But they get 3 weeks. And if anything good happens, good. If it doesn't, if an agreement cannot be reached with these fellows who've been at an impasse all this time, rowing with each other, or like we say, robbing, you think that they could reach an impasse before 4 months. You know the whole criteria of this kind of litigation. 120 days to propose plans to the court and creditors as to what you're going to do. Another 180 days. You're looking realistically, once those things are approved to be implemented, you're looking at late 2016, early 2017. That doesn't ride too well. That don't jive well, as KB the Kickin' Bahamian like to say. That don't jive well with what Christie's plans are to make sure he can go back to the electorate and say, see, we got the jobs. Doesn't jive well. And that's why these sound bites are very important. Because at the end of the day, we must be able to give you the sound bite as to what Christie said, not what we read. We don't want to do it that way. And that's why it was egregious that Nikki Simmons did not invite the entire media. That must never happen again. It must never happen again. And when I called BIS this morning to row Elcott Colby, the first thing Elcott Colby said to me, Steve, it ain't me. I had nothing to do with it. It was Nikki. Nikki was supposed to write her. I said, well, I can try get her. And I tried all day. And her telephone number is ringing out of service, the one that I have, just so that she would know. See, don't mess around with what we are doing. You can call, you can come on the show, and you can tell us. But don't play that game, because that's the first sign of dictatorship in selecting media. We will not play that game. I've spoken on that. Don't let me speak on that no more, because it won't be pretty. Because I know what happened. Hard Copy, how are you?
Hello, Mr. McKinney, how are you?
Very good, thanks.
What I called to say on this Bahama matter, and you can enlighten me, shouldn't they have some kind of agreement where, hey, if you have to wind up your assets or whatever in the Bahamas, that you be able to pay the people off? It don't seem as though they had any agreement.
Well, see, no. See here, the heads of agreement is where the shakiness is. Yeah, but succinctly to your question, If we hear the local people who have business with Bahama, somebody says thousands of 1,000 different business, we believe it is more than that, and big business too, including government business. If they wound up, if they call right now for the whole company to be wound up, then that means that project is finished. So they're perhaps sitting back now, not to call for it to be wound up so they can get their monies. They're going to relax and sit back and wait. And the waiting game is what has put many businesses out of business.
That is true.
So we are in a serious, precarious situation, and a lot of people don't understand it. They're getting caught up. Forget that the term about Chapter 11. Listen, Chapter 11, the man going to go to the United States court to make sure he can hold them creditors off, the people who he owe, so they don't come and collect nothing from him. That's what that is. Forget that. Understand that while that happens, nothing is happening on the ground here. In our jurisdiction, there's no file that happened here. Nobody filed, which means that they are obviously waiting to see how this is going to break. But the wait game, the waiting game could be very dangerous.
It's a hard game. You shouldn't have to play it, but...
Such it is. I appreciate your call. Hard copy, how are you?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hey, good morning, Mr. McKinney.
Good morning.
Sorry about that, there. Good afternoon, Mr.
Yeah, well, I know you sound like you was work in the night, and you just wake up, so you're saying good morning.
No, I was thinking about what the gentleman was talking about.
Don't worry about it. I'm listening to you. What do you say?
But everything good there with you there, sir?
Yes, sir. Get to your point. I got many calls.
All right, Mr. McKinney, I'm just curious. What do the Bahamian people send us to school for?
I don't know. I mean, I hope that they send you to school to get a good education so that you could one day own your business, not to get a good job. Them days gone. You need to be thinking, when you go to school, this is what I do, and when I come out here, I can own my business.
On top of that, Mr. McKinney, when you send us to school, you educate us. So please don't disagree, or please don't insult our intelligence. Because at the end of the day, we as Bahamians understand that in many ways we can develop our country. We don't need Bahama. But on top of that, how dare the Prime Minister say that he did not know the Bahama was on the verge of bankruptcy? Come on, Mr. McKinney. Paul Moss speaks about it all the time. Bahama is not opening. Paul Moss is educated. Do not disrespect the man intelligence, and do not disrespect the Bahamians' intelligence. We already know that they had issues with money. How could we put all our eggs in one basket? We have enough intelligent people in this country to develop this country.
I appreciate what you said, and you make good sense. Thank you kindly. Talking about Paul Moss, a couple of things here. Paul Moss talks about companies will fall out with this whole matter with Bahama. He also talked about the counseling that may be needed that an earlier caller talked about. It's because there are people on the cutting edge of knowing that this is how it ought to be done. Of course, Paul Moss is a political activist. He's also a financial analyst, and of course also he's a commentator and lawyer extraordinaire and businessman on The Last Word on Sundays. This is Paul on this whole idea with companies.
This whole scenario of Bahama has been troublesome. And we know that this aspect that we're on, this path that Bahama is on, is not a path that's going to necessarily end in the manner in which we want it to end well, because here's what is happening. Because of all these moving parts, you have other independent companies that are intricately involved in this process. For example, they have any number of brands, Hyatt brand, there's some brand out of Vegas. These people are not going to be associated with this property. They're going to pull out. And they have every right, because there are breaches of contracts all along the line for them to pull out. And it means then that they have to start again. They have to find the process again. This, my friend, is going to last for some time if it does not implode in our face.
My lord, tough words to swallow, but an observation by those who have been doing international banking, litigation, and negotiations the world over. Paul has been all over, from Singapore to Malaysia to Hong Kong to Jerusalem to London. This is the kind of work he does. So, I haven't heard any lawyer from the government side or any side come and say, it ain't so. This is a serious matter, and it ought to be taken seriously. Hard copy, how are you? Hi there. Good. Good afternoon, how are you?
Hey, Steve.
Peace.
How you doing, man?
Good, good, good.
Okay, yeah, I just want to bring a point to you that maybe
we don't know or we haven't paid attention to.
Sure, go ahead.
Sarkis has swung hundreds of millions of dollars from billion-dollar corporations.
Mm-hmm.
This guy knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
The Prime Minister and the former Prime Minister is no match to this guy. He studied them. And he was able to get them to do the dirty thing. Sign on as the co-signee of the loan with the Chinese. That's the only way to lend him the money. But his plan was originally to do what he do. The Chinese says that he haven't put more than $800 million into the ground.
Yeah, they don't believe he's put in more than $800 million.
Yeah, so what happened to the $2.6 billion?
Well, another financier told me some time ago, right on the show, that the idea was never to develop any hotels and all that. It was the idea was to see if they can get some money, those who are the ones who are running this whole business, to see if they can get some money is the easy way, but it was never really about building any hotels or any name brands. That is a byproduct of what the young man who called me, who's a financier, what he called the big scam.
Right.
That's what he said. But I don't know. I've not been able to investigate that and prove that. All I know is that the fellow who told me that is an international banker of the first order. He called the show and told me that live.
What this guy done is he walked away with $2.6 billion, and they can't get it because he went into Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
But listen here.
And I don't even think that he wants to come back and rebuild.
No, not with these guys. I'm glad you said that. Put a pin in right there. See, that's the catch-22. That is the real McCoy. That is the deal. Christie and everybody else, all of us are hoping that he comes back and continues with the negotiations as he's promised in his letter to the staff of Bahama, that the staff who he let go, that, he says that we will continue to negotiate and see what happens with our lenders. And I want to read it. In an agreement, he says, we will try, in the next few weeks, we will try to reach a consensual agreement with our bank lender. That's one. That's singular. With our bank lender. That's the XM Bank.
Yeah.
The Bahama project is dependent on our lender.
Exactly.
Working with us immediately to achieve an agreement.
It's not going to happen.
So, but you see, the attitude is that I then file, that's up to y'all. If nothing happens, because he made sure, brought it to the viewpoint of the individuals he was writing. He says, now listen, I am committed to doing what I can for all of you. Bahama will continue for a period to operate and fund payroll, and we are also going to use the next few weeks to try and negotiate with the lenders. He said, you see, now the point is, you can read that how you want to, but I sense from that there may be a new company if anything happens in the positive.
Right.
He may be dealing with some other people, some Americans, some English people, whoever they work this project with, but I don't know if China XM Bank is going to be in this.
I doubt that. They only want to get their monies at this point if they can. And now they have to wait on the bankruptcy courts to do what they need to do.
And that's a wait, isn't it?
It's a long wait. But here's the deal. Why would both prime ministers allow themselves to be swung out of their shoes? And we have very good, intelligent young men and women here who could negotiate these deals with a guy like him, because this guy is none to be trusted.
Well,
history says so.
Yeah, well, we see the history too, and I'm saving a lot of stuff. And you see, the way I do things, I'm methodical. I take my time to lay things out so that people can understand that there's no axe to grind. We lay it out as it unfolds, and then people will see. But we told you on this show, long time, last year, year before, we must watch the players. There is a plan to snatch all of that property out west without building and completing that hotel.
Correct.
I said that.
You said
because someone gave me the information, and I said, boy, I don't know. But as the days are counting down, I see that this thing looks like it is coming to pass. And I'm concerned. And I'm hoping that Christie and them will just get the lead out and understand, look at it for what it is. No one is concerned or trying to embarrass the government. Well, I certainly am not. Because these things happen. It ought not to happen. But Mr. Christie and them must not be feeling shame or dejected. They must pull it together and speak the truth with everyone and pull this thing off to the point where we can now start looking at how we're going to empower Bahamians and how we're going to do things the best way in our best interest. Outside of that, we're fooling ourselves.
The last word, Steve, is the guy's methodical. He studied these two people and swung them right out their shoes.
My Lord, they didn't get swing.
Long time.
My God. Excuse me, boy. Hard copy, how are you?
I'm okay, sir. How are you?
Very good, thanks.
Yes, it seemed that you can't find my soundbite.
Yeah.
The one when Perry Christie said,
Yeah, I haven't found
pray
it.
to God.
But I got it. Let me tell you what happened. I got the insight on it today after a guy called me yesterday, and guess what? It was said on the floor of the House of Assembly, so now I'm on the right track.
No, it was said during the Marsh Harbor by-election.
No. Oh, what you said about it, but no, somebody else was coming yesterday saying about how he said if they pray to God. Mm-hmm.
They can't get nothing. You got to still come to him.
Okay, you said it was the Abaco by-election.
Yes, sir.
Someone else told me that it was on the floor of the House.
So what these words?
Mm-hmm.
You remember during Linden time?
Yep.
When Glenn Rose said, Jesus turned water into wine, was Linden turned water into Caligula? And you see what happened after that? We got to watch these words, Mr. McKinney.
Yes,
watch the words.
No,
Follow the word. Don't worry with the money.
Yeah, God will not be mocked. You're right about that.
Huh?
God will not be mocked.
That's it. Follow the word.
Mm-hmm.
But I want you to play that, right? I tell you, Christy, anything he touch, man, the Moochie tell you that right on your show.
I
See you
cannot.
later. Have a nice day.
I cannot deny it. I'll find that soundbite. I'm in search of the soundbite. But I didn't hear it, honestly. And I won't take it for Christie. But if Christie said those words, let me just say it this way. Christie's been accused by many of saying such words, and this is paraphrasing because I didn't hear him. It has been said that Christie said during an interview or speaking words from his lips that people can pray if they want to, and after they pray, they still got to come to him to get it done. Now, if Christie said that, I can speak on behalf of our Lord and Savior, based on the Bible. I'll tell you this: God wouldn't like that. If he said that, that would be a stinking scent in the nostrils of our God. If he said that, that would not be looked upon as a good thing to say. Those kind of words could cause you to eat grass like Nebuchadnezzar. That's why I'm not quick to say that he said it. But people keep telling me that. Now the gentleman has called me from Abaco saying that I must find the sound bite. Well, if he said it, it's there somewhere. We'll find it. And if he said it, may the Lord forgive him. Because he could not have been thinking straight if he said that. He might have been under pressure. Hard copy, how are you?
Hey, good day, Steve. How you doing?
Peace and love, all is well.
That was my drag here.
Mud Dragon, you calling me from Abaco too?
No, yeah, but Steve, I'm here now. I don't work here. But Steve, if you need a soundbite of that, I sure Sybil Mills will have a copy of that. And I don't think Mr. Christie said that. But give Sybil Mills a call tomorrow, tonight, and ask Sybil Mills if he did hear the Prime Minister say that. Because ain't nothing the Prime Minister ever come to Abaco to speak on Sybil Mills to him.
Yeah, Sybil, my good friend and colleague.
Sybil Mills is the top man for any official or government official of Britain Abaco. He's on top of
He would have gotten it for
Mills
Radio
on that.
Abaco.
But that ain't what I call for Steve.
Mm.
Steve, Mr. Christie need to move speedily. We don't know an ambassador in Beijing, in China, nowhere in them countries. And I think that's where, when you don't have those kind of people sitting and representing your country, Chinese look at you different. They don't respect you. They hear you, they listen to you, they may cut deals with you, but you have an ambassador there. And I think Mr. Christie right now, the closest deal with Bahama, he may be shameful. I would ask the former Prime Minister to step in. Mr. Christie, Mr. Ingram knows about this deal. I believe better than Mr. Christie, you ask me. Mr. Ingram right now could play a role to help Mr. Christie to save those 2,000 to 3,000 jobs. Mr. Ingram, when he sits in as a delegator and go to Beijing and go to China and meet with these people and just act on the government side to guide this project to come to fruition. What do you think, Mr. Kinney?
I like the idea. I don't know if Ingram will be inclined to go, but I can tell you that Mr. Ingram just in 2013 wrote a letter to the Tribune that talked about a number of things that Christie had gone contrary to, as it related to the roadworks and to what monies were supposed to be put into that by the government of the Bahamas. Mr. Ingram in that letter claimed that Christendom went against what he had done when he was Prime Minister, and that Christendom came back and did something when they took over again to put back in a clause that he had taken out with regards to the roadwork. So, Mr. Ingram, you know, I don't know how he's feeling about this. Maybe we'll check with him if he's about to give comment on the whole matter. But knowing Mr. Ingram, he's finished with the whole thing. But I like the idea because Ingram, too, in fact, knows a lot of stuff about this particular deal. I appreciate your call. Thank you kindly. Don't forget now, Ingram was the guy who also, well, the former Prime Minister, I should say, not the guy, but the former Prime Minister, who got rid of the first. Well, he didn't do it deliberately. He was questioning a lot of things about the first heads in the first deal with all the land and property. Remember that when he came to office in 2007? And he made sure that they changed the configuration of the layout of the land and what they got and what they shouldn't get. And the high-risk group at the time that Ismailian had been, you know, courting, I have to say that, the high-risk group that Mr. Ismailian had been courting, they got upset. This was a casino group, you see. They got upset and they pulled out. And the project almost fell. And then they found the Chinese, and the Chinese was able to come and, you know, try to make the project happen. Ingram went there and so forth and so on. So Mr. Ingram knows exactly what is supposed to happen, and don't get no indication that I'm blaming him, because this has happened on the Christie's watch. We've seen the governments change and the turnover of government to government happen because governments are continuous, and there are some rules that all and sundry must go by. Did Christie and them go by all the rules? You be the judge. Or time will tell. But, you know, Leslie Miller, talking about Beijing as the guy just now, Leslie Miller says, look, Christie need to go to Beijing now.
I think what needs to be done now, from my honest opinion, being involved with cabinet before, and as a businessman, the Prime Minister, Mr. Ismailian, appointing the statue of Mr. James Smith, Michael Keatis, Alison Maynard as the legal team, along with Mr. Obi Wilsham, should now get a flight, go to Beijing, meet with the Chinese government, indicate to them the Bahamas' grave concern about this project, that failure is not an option, that $3 billion has already been put in the ground in our country, and that whatever is necessary to facilitate the completion of this project on behalf of our people as well as the Ismailian and their group needs to be done. I think they need to reconstruct whatever was done between the two parties with the Import-Export Bank of China, but get it right. There's too much at stake. If that project doesn't succeed, if that project isn't open within the next 3 months to 6 months, I would say maximum 4 months, this country is going to be in peril. We must get Bahama completed. And my suggestion to the Right Honourable Prime Minister, go to Beijing. I've been there. I was the first minister in the government. In fact, the first Bahamian minister to visit China. That was back in 1992. I was invited there as Minister of Trade and Industry. And I went there. And you sit with the Chinese, and once you explain to the Chinese that is on behalf of the people of your country, they listen to you. They would listen to this government more than to listen to Ismailian and those, because you're now dealing with a country and not a company. That needs to be done, and it needs to be done more sooner than later.
That was Leslie Miller talking with me on Hard Copy on May 13th, 2015, just a couple of weeks ago. But despite his advocacy, there was no trip for the Prime Minister or his delegation to Beijing. None. And so, Mr. Miller, you advise, but no dice. Hard Copy, how are you?
Hey, good afternoon, Mr. McKinney. How are you doing today, man?
Very good, thank you kindly.
Yeah. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah. Mr. McKinney, just one or two questions I would like to put to you, sir. First of all, mentioning Mr. Ingram. Mr. McKinney, do you believe or do you think that Mr. Christie may have, because I see where he actually sought the advice or you know, just sit down on bilateral terms and speak with Mr. Minnis. Do you think that Mr. Christie may have made any attempts to speak with Mr. Ingram and find out what his approach or what his advice might be on this matter, saying that, you know, Mr. Ingram has some intimate dealings with this, and he has a clear understanding as to what would have gone down or you know, where we would have been today
I would say, you asked me a question. Let me quickly answer. You asked me a question. Let me quickly say, I would think that Ingram had been talking with Christie from the time that Christie took office as Prime Minister in this second non-consecutive term. We've always heard reports that Ingram and Christie would somehow run into each other at Olive's restaurant or West in Cable Beach, and they'd have a good laugh and a little talks. And I believe that they would be talking because it's the right thing to do. So I believe that they would have talked about the progress of Bama on several occasions. I cannot prove that, but I would think that, knowing Mr. Ingram being a nationalist and one who likes to build things up in the country, he would have been talking with Christie, and Christie would have engaged him. They may not have been talking officially, but, you know, they would have chit-chat, I believe, in my honest opinion, about the project.
And that's what I'm talking. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't you think that at this time where we are at a crucial stage? You know what I mean? Like I heard a few other persons say on previous shows. You know, this, and I think Paul Morse would have said it as well. You know, that this is the time where true leaders will emerge. And I believe that, you know, Mr. Ingram, along with, you know, Mr. Millis, I guess, and other persons, you know, who have some knowledge. You know, I mean, why aren't we calling in people like Paul Morse and Mr. Moultrie? You know, why aren't we consulting? I mean, based on what the Chapter 11 states, I mean, basically, it is totally out of the Bahamian people on. But here's a suggestion, and I mean, it's just a suggestion. I remember when Mr. Obama, you know, took over the presidency of America. And, you know, they was in this great debt, and the country was in the recession and everything. You know, Obama went and borrowed some $700 odd billion, you know, to bail out those big banks and stuff. Why? I mean, is there any way, Mr. McKinney, that, you know, our government? I know the situation we in with our national debt. Is there any way where we could, you know, go and borrow?
Don't ask that question. Don't ask that question, my friend. Just go and look at your newspapers.
Why not, Mr. McKinney?
Just go and take a page from. Because Greece say they cannot pay. You know Greece? You know what?
But Mr. McKinney, if you really think about it, I mean,
no,
look, I think it was
it's not an option.
AIG, I think it was. They were able to pay their debt back and forth plus interest.
My friend, I hear you, but listen here. You're dealing with big business, with big governments in first world countries. And Greece say they can't pay. Now listen, don't even put no idea out there like that we could go borrow anything to bail anybody out. We are not in the credit rating to do that. Don't even try that, okay?
But like I said, it's just a suggestion. And what I think of, you know, I think Paul said, you know, the 35. How many acres of land? And I'm just thinking of all the assets that we have. Like you said, like I've heard a lot of people say, you know, this is a project, Mr. McKinney. I'm going to say it cannot fail or it should not fail. Mr. McKinney, I don't want it to fail. You know, and I mean, even though, you know, we are in the situation that we're in right now, to me it appears as if, you know, the true leaders aren't emerging, and I believe that, you know, in short order, like you said yesterday, you know, we really need to go back to the drawing board. I think we need to start this thing all over again and call the early elections up.
Well, I said that yesterday. Should we? I asked you the question yesterday. Does all of what's happening now, does it mean that we need a new mandate? That may be the best course of action to start over and see what we can salvage.
Mr. McKinney, we're not saying anything, you know, like you said, you know, we just made a statement yesterday, and we made a more clarified, you know, statement, I mean, the day before yesterday, and we cleared it up a little bit last night, but, I mean, we are still not, and when I say we are talking about the government, you know, we have not come up with any solutions, and the thing about it is, right, I don't know if any solutions has been offered, you know, to the Ismailian group and the Chinese and all these other persons, but, I mean, come on.
Let me put it to you this way as I hang from you.
Yes, sir.
You remember when Ingram said we need the money? You remember that?
Yeah.
When Ingram said we need the money. And they sold Patelco. They needed the money. Now, Christie has not yet taken the advice of one of his colleagues, Leslie Miller, to fly to Beijing and take his chances. If we're in a desperate situation, we've got to deal with it with all of our faculties in place and with all the best advice that we can get. This is a lesson to Mr. Christie. The lesson to Mr. Christie is, while you may surround yourself with wisdom, it is a different dispensation of time. It is a different era. And the different era calls for people who are thinkers, movers, and know how to do things, people. This is no longer writing something down on a notepad and all that. He has put himself with that particular group, and that particular group now need new eyes, new airs, new vision to bail him out. So he is not getting the kind of advice, in my opinion, as to what he really should be doing. I appreciate your call. See, and I didn't mean to get off on this whole thing. The point is this. There's a time for everything under the sun. This is biblical. There's a time to make changes, too. You cannot expect to get a good result if you hadn't been getting any and you're still using the same people. All of these people God has given this country, all these bright minds who know about these things, who can advise. Even if you don't want them in your grouping, you can at least take their advice. But no, we want to get advice from people who don't even understand this jurisdiction or the demographics or the mood and attitudes of our people. Just look at that. That's an idea from New Zealand. People not understanding and appreciating that we've got people in this country who so old and then retire and can't pay no extra bill because they're only making $300 in their pension. No thought has been given to how we're going to deal with that in a unique fashion, understanding the demographics of our country. We just plan something from one place to another. New Zealand is an industrialized first world nation. The people who, when they retire, they get so much money for retirement that these guys who came to advise this government, that was oblivious to them. They're thinking, oh, it's the same thing. No, it's not. And so your grandma and your mommy and daddy who now on pension and getting $303 a month or $5, they can't pay no bill. I'm just showing you something. I'm not trying to beat up that. I'm showing you something. You have to consider the demographics of the country, the different levels of people, the income per capita. When it comes to comparing the countries, you've got to understand the dynamics. Successive governments like to go someplace else for these things. We got people right who can tell you. The only thing they want to know about these people here is what corner to go through. What corner is Odal corner when they campaigning. It's a shame on them. And that's why I'm saying, when new people are around, see, when God is ready to make changes, this is 40 years now, we're 42 years old. He wants to do something different. This is a new group of people. There's a new plan and a new promise for the new people of the new Bahamas. Don't you get it? The old people of the Bahamas, and I don't mean that old in numbers, I mean people of a particular era. It is not their time. We must surrender the things of our youth in the twilight of our years. As we age, we cannot jump and dunk the basketball no more, can we? Fresh legs, fresh strength, young people can do that. It's the same thing in governance. While you need advice from people who've been there and done that, there's a new methodology, a new way of doing things. Miles Monroe spoke of it over and over again. He speaks of it now. We are in the dispensation of that changeover. Yet we don't want to let go. Nobody says that out with all the old. No, sir. There are people there who are brilliant. They can do things, but you can't drive this car no more. This car need new eyes because they changed the roads. The curve that used to be here ain't here no more, so don't go turning this car into no curve. That's what I'm saying. A new driver who can see. He ain't got no cataracts on his eye. That's how I'm going to put it to you. If a new driver driving the car with fresh new ideas, with fresh tires and, all that, we can go somewhere. But if the fella who driving the car is from that other century, he's Jurassic. You know what's going to happen? He's going to be driving dead slow, dead careful, and may fall asleep. Lord in heaven, what's this? Bam! Buck up. Hey, what is what? Hard copy, how are you? Final call.
Hello, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm in good shape. How are you?
Steve, I just want to ask you a question. How long did Ingram and Christie practice the law? Because my opinion, the kind of deals that they cut on behalf of the Bahamian people, right? They weren't very successful lawyers, right? So we get crappy deals at the end of the day.
Well, I don't know the history too much of it. I know that Ingram and Christie got together and started a law firm.
Yeah, but I don't think they were no top of the line lawyers.
Well,
That's why we getting the deals we get on the table. But
they
you know,
may not
I
have been, but they
call
got big
Stephen,
business.
the Bahamian people know that we need to call for the resignation of the entire cabinet, because see, it's on their watch that we're going through this insanity. And you know, they say insanity is repeating the same mistakes over and over again, and that's what's happening in this country with this administration and even the previous one. We are repeating insanity over and over again and expecting different results, and it has to stop. The Bahamian people now need to get aggressive like the people down south, burn tires in the road and demonstrate and ask this government to leave office quietly. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. I want to share something with you as we get set to wrap. We're going to go in some extra minutes. I want to play a clip. Maybe I should save it for tomorrow, but I promise to play it today. From the first Independence sermon. It is 18 minutes long, isn't it? I have time. Take it to 7:30. But before I do that, Paul Moore says that counseling may be needed in this Bahama deal for our people. Our people are hurting. They are lost in space on this. They don't really understand all the peculiarities and all the details of something like this. This is mind-boggling. This is not what they had been looking for. They don't know these things. They can't be bothered with it. What they do know is that they've got some children home to feed. They got some rent to pay or some mortgage to pay. They got the lights to keep on, the cable to keep on. They've got to make sure gas in the car, they got one, or they got to have bus money to catch the bus. That's the reality of them. These are our people. I love them. They're our brothers and sisters. They're God's children. They belong to the Bahamas. What is happening here is that either greed or selfishness has set in to this particular situation, or self-conceit. Something is afoul. It is not acceptable for the nation's chief executive, being an eminently qualified lawyer, Minister of Finance and Prime Minister of the Bahamas, to be blindsided. It's not acceptable. It is not acceptable that the cabinet is going to just rally around the Prime Minister and not really try to troubleshoot and help him and convince him that, buddy, we've got to find some expertise because we've got to go into a mode of job creation or relaxing some laws in this town as it relates to business licenses to put people to work, because something has got to happen to avoid the misery index going skyrocketing through the ceiling. Who's going to speak? Are you so busy caught up at wanting to be leader and infighting to be in charge of a party that may not be going anywhere fast, all things considered? Come now, in this back half, pull it together. Let me see you. Get it together. Make me proud and pleased, and I shall say from the top of my lungs that they're trying their best and they're making me proud and pleased. But some of them want to suck their teeth, but that's their business. They don't know the influence that we have right here on this mic. They're the ignorant ones. They're the ones like Mrs. Nikki Reed Simmons, who believe that we are not able to get a sound bite because she didn't invite us. This is the same woman, you know, from the office of Prime Minister, perhaps under instructions or on her own steam, decided that Stronger Bahamas should be rolled out, and then they pull it back and they never mention it again. I say to the Prime Minister, there's a hint. Find somebody who know what they're doing, because you're not making it any easier. Because if it happened again, I will talk about it again. You don't run this country and decide that you're going to interfere with what is national news to be picky and choosy about who can carry it. Don't let it happen again. I mean that with love. Paul Moss wonders, what about the counseling of these people?
this has so much serious implications. I am very concerned about the mental health of those persons engaged at Bahama, those companies who are tinkering on bankruptcy themselves in the Bahamas because they have non-payment from Bahama. I'm very concerned about it. And so whilst we have this opportunity, they should have really have in place, and we should get in place now, volunteers, counselors to go and speak. It's not good enough to
You really mean that?
I mean it. You cannot on a Monday afternoon surprise your workers with a letter like that. Don't come back. Come on. What are they to do? And this is a serious, our economy is growing at what? The snail's pace, 1%.
And you see, the promise to continue for a period to operate and fund payroll. And we are also using the next few weeks to try and reach a consensual agreement with our bank lender.
All right.
Now,
this is Mr. State.
Yes, Paul is quite right. How long is this period of time going to be? Especially to those who left other employment. I mean, they were risk takers, but who have a lot of obligations, financial obligations.
And children,
of their
yes,
own.
absolutely.
Children, mortgage, or rent. You can imagine what's happening tonight.
Yeah, Frank Carter's voice at the tail end of that. It is 7 behind the hour. Stick with me. I've got a treat for you. After the break, I'm going to play some commercials and come back. And when I do, I want to let you understand as we pivot going into this week of the whole idea of independence. I want you to be the first to hear the speech from the Reverend Dr. R.E. Cooper, late, as to what God said to this nation on July 10th, 1973, the day we became a nation. There was a mandate from God for the Bahamas. When you hear this speech, this preaching sermon, you tell me if you think that we are on track. I suggest that we're way off track. I want you to listen intently when we come back here this evening on Hard Copy.
Commonwealth Bank auto loans are as hassle-free and easy as it gets. It's just that simple.
With on-the-spot dealer reps to approve and help you through the process, you're right, it really is just that simple.
With the many options available, like insurance financing, low down payments, and easy monthly payments, Commonwealth Bank had all the flexibility I needed in an auto loan.
Thanks, CB. Thanks, CB, for making it quick and easy. Commonwealth Bank, leader in personal banking services.
Are you frustrated with the educational system? Tired of large classes and social promotion? Tired of paying exorbitant fees for dismal results? Then Grace Academy is the solution for you. Individual learning plans to guarantee student academic success. Low student-teacher ratio. Reasonable and affordable tuition. All in a safe and comfortable Christian learning environment. Grace Academy, home of the Bob Jones curriculum, grades K3 through 6. Ask about our homeschooling center for secondary students. To register or for more information, contact 361-5100 or godslittle17@gmail.com. Number 1, Chester's Close, Vincent Road, off St. Vincent Road.
Welcome to Sunburst Super Summer Sale, where you buy 5 and get 1 superior quality paint. You get 1 gallon of fresh look wall paint absolutely free. And Sunburst prices start at $16.95 per gallon for top quality wall paint and $38.95 per gallon for super glossy enamel wood paint. In addition, Sunburst will be raffling 3 32-inch flat screen TVs and 3 washing machines to lucky customers. So hurry on down to Sunburst Paints on Howard Road. Sunburst, where every gallon is guaranteed.
Introducing Commonwealth Bail Bonds Limited. When in trouble, call us on the double. Commonwealth Bail Bonds Limited. We provide bail bonds of $10,000 and higher. Has your loved one been arrested or need bail? No worries, don't stress. Contact the best. Commonwealth Bail Bonds Limited, First Street, The Grove, above Bronze Break Center. Telephone 325-8363 or email bailbonds@242@gmail.com.
Having trouble getting sorted out with your immigration paperwork? Put your concerns in proven and capable hands. Prime Immigration Services, providing full services in all matters of immigration. Status permits, work permits, spousal permits, and even matters relating to detainment. Prime Immigration Services is located 1st Street, The Grove. Call 325-8363. Prime Immigration Services.
There's no other talk show like the show. If it's 5 o'clock, it's hard copy.
We're in overtime. We're now in overtime. We have to read the text messages, and I'll let you hear the sermon from the Reverend Ari Cooper on independence, and you put it all together. We're bringing to conclusion today this whole bit about the Bahama filing for bankruptcy, and here's what people responded to today. We'll also post these on Facebook at the end of the show, as we did last night. This one says, remember now, hard copy, Mr. Davis and his crew made this mess in which the PM had to intervene. This one says, it's a game of chess, Steve. This one says, Steve, we're lucky because initially Prime Minister Christie was giving away much more land from the onset. Remember that? Goodman's Bay, even his own house? Laugh out loud. This one says, Mr. McKinney, isn't the Prime Minister surrounded by lawyers and none of them foresaw this move? You got to be kidding me. This one says, Steve, do you think a new leader is in the prophecy? Or he says, Steve, do you think a new leader is in the prophecy? Maybe the Chinese? Well, mother's sick. This one says, Mr. McKinney, maybe he was because, remember, the original deal with the previous developer, it was Ingham who stated that they had no money. And when you look at others like Ginn and the I Group and others, however, I wouldn't call it blindsided. This person says he called it bad. What is HOA? House of Assembly? No, it can't be that. It got to be something else. But anyway, it says this. He had no option, Steve. Sandy Sands probably did not know about the bankruptcy plan, so he couldn't tell Christie. Well, Sandy Sands was is the vice president, senior vice president of information and government relations and all that kind of stuff and public relations and everything. And Sandy Sands would be consistent because he didn't tell Christie either when the people from the hotel were laid off and caused all that combustion on that Friday evening when they shut down the people at Malia. You remember that? And Christie said, I didn't know. He said, Sandy didn't tell me. And I said, well, how come? Sandy is the government's man, the liaison between the operators of Bahama and the government. But Sandy got a free pass. Nobody did Sandy anything. This one says, I guess Dr. Rollins' remarks of poor leadership ain't so off track after all. Laugh out loud. This one says, former Prime Minister Ingham must now cast off his immature posture and come back and bring leadership to this issue. Says who? That's what that person says. This one says, Steve, y'all ain't realized yet that some of these politicians don't believe in the Almighty. This one says, good afternoon, Mr. McKinney. If my memory serves me right, when Mr. Ingham negotiated the Bahama project, he mentioned one project at the time like now. Atlantis was built in stages. What has this place government done? What has this Christie government, I suppose, done? Person says we need prayers. Another one says, forward, upward, onward, together. That's all we can do to revive such a blow. Move forward, upward, onward, together. Well, that's the coat of arms theme for independence, and we're into that mode now, so maybe we should. This one says, hi, Steve. We are still in the month of July, and Dr. Monroe's prophecy is coming to pass. Things will happen that you have never seen and have no control over. That's what that person reminds me. This one says, Steve, Perry Christie should be charged with high treason. He has betrayed his country in order to achieve a selfish legacy. Shame! That's what that person says. Another says, how can Bahamians be patriotic today when they are suffering, jobless, and with no solutions? Independence for Bahamians means progress. Is it the case today? We can only put trust in Jesus. Man and governments failed us. This one says, whom the gods select first, they must make mad. Christie, them mad. That's what this person is saying. Whom the gods decide to punish, they first make mad. An old African saying. And this person is saying, Christie, them are now under punishment. Well, there are all kinds of views about this whole thing, but I asked the question today, have you recently listened to, heard, the preaching on that blessed Independence morning when the Reverend Dr. R.E. Cooper, in all of his regalia, spoke to the nation about what and thus says the Lord. Today, I'm giving you a treat. It's the first present of independence going into July 10th in 2015.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. For ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, an holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. 1 Peter 2:9. The Christian church is not a new product on the market. In the very beginning of his epistle, the Apostle Peter admonishes them to be sober and to walk worthy of their high calling as obedient children. He further urges them to be holy because their Father in heaven is holy. He states very clearly that the people called Christians should be careful of their manner of life, because the same God who loves them and has called them unto holiness will one day judge them according to their works. The food upon which the Christians are to feed must be the sincere milk of the Word, the Holy Scriptures. Having drawn their attention to these things, the apostle reminds them that their salvation, their liberation from the shackles of sin, was not obtained by material substance such as silver and gold, but with the precious blood of God's only Son, Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God. So now, since the Christians have obtained such a holy estate, they must be prepared to lay aside the evils which would hinder them from growing into the full stature of Jesus Christ. And the apostle names some of these unwanted elements in the life of the Christians that would obstruct their onward reach in spiritual growth: guile, hypocrisies, envies, evil speakings. For it is only when these things are removed from our lives that we can truly become spiritual material for God to make us to become what we ought to be. And what does God want us to become? A chosen generation. God, who in time past did choose Israel to be his chosen generation through Abraham, is now through Jesus Christ choosing the believer to become his chosen generation through salvation and sanctification. Here the desire for unity is at once expressed. In the Old Testament, God is known as the God and Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In the New Testament, he is known as the God and Father of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, through whom we become sons of God. One Father, and that is why we cry, Abba, Father. Note that our position in the kingdom is an act of God's sovereign mercy and grace. For the very night before his death, Jesus said to his disciples, "Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you." So then, as members of this one generation, this royal priesthood, this holy nation, this peculiar people, we must have a common concern for and interest in human needs. The cry of our brothers and sisters from across the Commonwealth and the world, indeed, should reach our ears and find in us a readiness to listen with bowels of mercy and a heart of compassion. Business of lifting men, lifting his physical body out of the squalor and poverty of want and all that go with it. We should help him to become and put him in a place where he can enjoy some of the good things which the same God, this same Lord and Savior Jesus Christ has put into this world. Lifting his mental capacity where he can discover and solve his own problems by reaching conclusions which he will not regret. Lifting his spiritual horizon towards the rising sun. And here I mean the Son of Righteousness, who rose with healing in his wings. And hear him say, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." For we are one generation. No longer is the man by the side of the road a Gentile or a Jew, and the passerby a Levite or a Samaritan, but the man in distress is my brother. She is my sister. Irrespective of where he was born, we are one generation. I must hear the cry. I must attend to his wounds. I must lift him up, try help him to get on his feet again. So then, as members of this one generation, this royal priesthood, this holy nation, this peculiar people, we must have a concern for and interest in human dignity and self-respect. If life is worthwhile living, it ought to be lived at its best. We should be constantly engaged in the business of lifting men, lifting his physical body out of the squalor and poverty of want and all that go with it. We should help him to become and put him in a place where he can enjoy some of the good things which the same God, this same Lord and Savior Jesus Christ has put into this world. Lifting his mental capacity where he can discover and solve his own problems by reaching conclusions which he will not regret. Lifting his spiritual horizon towards the rising sun. And here I mean the Son of Righteousness, who rose with healing in his wings. And hear him say, I am the way, the truth, and the life. We should gird ourselves with honesty, sobriety, and singleness of purpose. And we should find ourselves sitting with peasants and not being humiliated or downhearted, and standing before kings and not being afraid. It is then, and only then, can we walk with dignity forward, onward, upward, together, remembering that as members of this one generation, this royal priesthood, this holy nation, this peculiar people, we are all human beings. So then, as members of this royal priesthood, we must have a common concern for and interest in human rights. God has made us to see that Christians, in their acts, who deny the dignity of their fellow men, they also deny Jesus Christ, in spite of all that they may profess to believe. Therefore, we Christians want to safeguard human rights in a just Bahamian community. The very nature of our convictions causes us to be concerned about the dignity and freedom of man everywhere. Man created by God in his image and in his likeness. We are also concerned for the equality of individuals who make up our community, regardless of whatever race or origin. So then we must pay particular attention to the development of human rights and the right of self-determination. Churches should strive to make their congregation feel and know that in the world of today, the rights of the individual are woven together with the struggle for a better standard of living for the underprivileged. Because of the age in which we now live, a world glaring with inequality and social injustice, a deep change in human attitude is required. Christians and Christian churches should take the lead and set an example for respect, dignity, equality, and the free expression of thought, even in print. The active engagement of people of all ages in development, reconciliation, and social work is to be encouraged and supported as an expression of our solidarity as a nation. We are happy and pleased to know that these fundamental rights and freedoms are already entrenched in the new Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This goes down as a strong testimony of the integrity and intention of this government. May the good Lord help them so to do. And now, why did God do all of this for us? Why has He so lavishly put upon us His blessings? The answer is right here in the text, that we should show forth His praises, the praises of Him who hath called us out of darkness into His marvelous light. Why did God give us all that sea out there, the sand and the balmy air, and all of the blooming flowers, the green grass, and all we can see with our eyes this morning? Why did God bless us? And why did He give it to us? He has given us these blessings. He has brought us unto this day. And I was happy to hear His Royal Highness, yesterday in his address say that he has come to present instruments which would give us complete freedom. Why did God do all of that for us? The apostle says God has done that for us, that we as a people in this commonwealth may be an example to others to show that when you hold God's hand, when you let God take control of the situation, when you turn over all matters to God, whether economic, political, social, religious, whatever it is, God, not man, God, has brought us on pivot path today. And above our head, his sun shines in marvelous splendor. And we have no fear of anything. The Holy Spirit is here this morning. He is in control. God has given all this, that the Bahamian people will kneel at the cross. Stay there.
Yes.
Tell God all about it. That the leaders of this country may know that above their heads there's a God somewhere. A God who hears.
Yes.
A God who answers prayer.
Absolutely.
All they have to do is to travel the throne and tell it to Jesus. We have no fear today. We are not intimidated, for the Christian walk on solid ground, on Christ.
Solid.
The solid rock, the Bahamas stands.
All of the ground.
And hear me today. All other ground. You can beat your head as much as you like, but all other ground is bogging sand.
My Lord.
Thank God today that God has called us. And as I close this message, oh, today, we can hear the voice of God reaching down from heaven and looking on this crowd and saying, today, this is a chosen
generation.
My
Lord.
Yeah, this is a royal priesthood. This is an holy nation. This is a peculiar people. I have called them to be my very own.
My Lord.
That they should show forth my praises and be an example to the other world to show that independence through God will work.
My Lord. My Lord. My Lord. My Lord. My Lord. Reverend, the late Reverend Dr. Reuben Cooper, R.E. Cooper. What a message on Independence Morn. All of the ground is sinking sand. All. Only on God. Now you understand, in context, how come we are so far off track. Do you think we're still on track? That was a message from God to us, the Bahamian people, for a new nation. To look after all of those who would normally discard. It's a new day, is what he was saying. Take care of the people. We got the Band-Aid. Are we still on track? I leave that with you tonight, my friends, to ponder, to think about, because he said it. Only God. Man hand will fail you. Look to the hills from whence cometh your help. All of the ground is sinking sand. Yes, even that project out west can't save you. And so that sermon is timely for all and sundry to hear. As the young people say, you've heard. Now go do. Let's go home, Irvin. I hope the wife has cooked me some nice soup tonight, because, boy, I could use it. And I hope that your wife has cooked you some good soup, too. Thank you kindly tonight. Our show's been brought to you by Commonwealth Bail Bonds Limited, Bank of the Bahamas, the Bank of Solutions, BTC every day, Super Value, Bahamian Supermarkets, The McKinney Media Group for effective PR concepts and advertisement on and made products made especially for you. Ministry of Tourism Jonkaroo Summer Fest begins on Saturday. AML Foods, Fresh Market, and Cost Right. $30,000 of prizes and trips that you can get if you shop there. Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue. For the best insurance, home, boat, plane, whatever it is, go to Advantage. New Oriental Cleaners. They have 9 locations, and they are absolutely the best. Grace Academy, #1, Chester Clothes, Ron's Electric Motors. They can fix anything. Prime Immigration Services. You've got problems with immigration and all that? You call Prime Immigration Services. Sky Bahamas professionals in every way, every day. Super Wash. 11 locations to serve you. Kalina Financial Advisors Limited, CFAL, Executive Printers, and Henry F. Store, the right people on Mackey Street. A good night until God willing. Tomorrow we'll be back, and of course there's much more to talk about, much more to come, because we've got a country to build. Tomorrow then, God willing. Good night from Hard Copy.